Her heart jumped, clenched hard. She swore it skipped a beat. Wraith stilled. Both froze. Theo simply peered down at the screen of his laptop as if mesmerized by the various numbers there. "The bidding is going strong for you," he announced. Theo didn't sense the men coming up behind him. 5 of them. Even if they were entirely silent, which Maya was certain they were, and their energy was non-existent, surely he had to feel the presence of danger. His Leopard had to be that aware. She was locked behind a thick door, and the threat of impeding violence hit her so hard she took several steps back into the darker shadows. As the men came closer, she could tell that the 3 bringing up the rear were bodyguards. They were definitely from one of the lairs in the Primorye region of Russia. They were Amur shifters, fit, muscles moving subtly beneath their clothing. It was the 2 men striding toward Theo that set her heart pounding. She'd never seen 2 men who appeared more like predators. At first, she thought the bulkier of the 2 was the man to fear most. His eyes were glacier cold, and she knew he took in everything around him. The other man was definitely an Amurov, but he was more. She couldn't keep her gaze from him. He didn't have obvious muscles, but they ran beneath his skin. He looked almost nice, charming, but she knew that was deceptive. She couldn't have said how she knew, but she did. Icy fingers of fear crept down her spine. She would have moved even farther back into the shadows, but movement drew notice, and she didn't dare draw either of those 2 men's attention to herself. They were the scariest men she'd ever encountered, and she'd met a few very dangerous men. She was careful to observe them from under her lashes, not stare directly. Several times, despite their attention being centered on Theo, both men looked toward the door of the basement as if they were aware they were under observation. "Theo Pappas," the man she was certain was an Amurov, spoke. His voice was deceptively low, mild, no hint of a threat. Theo half turned to face them, his skin going ashen as he saw the number of men facing him. One of the bodyguards reached out and took his laptop from him, glanced at the screen, and then handed it to Amurov. "My name is Gorya Amurov." He studied the contents of the screen and then turned toward the door of the basement. "You appear to be auctioning off a young female leopard in heat. The fact that that door is bolted would indicate she might not be on board with your idea." Again, Maya couldn't detect a hint of reprimand. She also couldn't tell whether he thought the idea was a good one or not. Considering the Amurov lairs dealt in human trafficking, she was sure he would applaud Theo's scheme. "The money's for you," Theo said hastily. "I owe you money, and this was a way to pay you back. You can see how much is coming in, and I only just started the auction. Although," he added, "if you want her yourself, we could work something out." The bodyguards exchanged incredulous looks. Maya allowed herself a breath. Theo was oblivious to the fact that he was in way over his head. "We can work something out," Gorya Amurov repeated slowly in that same low voice. His head turned slowly, and this time his eyes pierced the darkness to look right at her, seeing her. He didn't look in the least bit easygoing or charming. Fear crept down her spine. Ice surrounded her heart. She gripped the hilt of her knife and stroked one finger along the small blade. She was looking at death.